Welcome to the revolution. An experience that I've had with this, which was truly very powerful. I've had probably 3 super unbelievably impactful meditations that have changed the trajectory of my life forever. And again, I'm an A-type hyper logical person. It was with some, I have a draw towards these types of, meditations and yoga and things that I find to be interesting for my personality type. But I tend to be a hyper logical person, but once you start to enact these things, it's hard to deny the effects of them. So I used to wake up every morning at like 6:30 in the morning, and I would come downstairs to my basement. I would have my yoga mat there. I would lay down and I would do some type of yoga or some type of meditation, and I would alternate. I would do yoga, then the next morning I'd do meditation. I would do yoga, and the next morning I'd do meditation. And I found this Transcendental meditation on YouTube. And if I can find it, I will link it in this week's Substack. And if you haven't joined our Substack, you should. It's directly on our website, redpillrevolution.co. You'll get all the links, all the articles, everything we're talking about today will be directly on the Substack. So go there, sign up, give your email, and you'll get everything that we're talking about here. Okay. And including if I can find this meditation, I will post it in there. It's on YouTube. And I believe it was a 10 megahertz, was the frequency that was used in it. And so, I laid down, and what this had you do is it had you get to the most calm state that you could possibly feel it. And you'll see people, like when they're meditating, they touch their fingers together, like their index finger or their pointer finger and their thumbs, right? The traditional, funky, weird meditative sitting stance where most people aren't flexible enough to sit their legs weird crisscrossy. I am, by the way. But you put your fingers together, right? And what I've found is that when I'm in a deeply meditative state, I find that the feeling of my fingertips goes away. It's a really wild phenomenon, but I know I'm there. I know that I've met this, this deeper state of consciousness when I no longer know the room that I'm in. I'm no longer, laying in the shower, right? Sometimes when I meditate, I'm no longer laying on the floor of my office. I'm no longer on a yoga mat. I'm no longer looking at a wall inside of my house. I'm in my own walled garden, my own consciousness that is outside of where I'm at in this world, in this time, right? But if I open my eyes at any given time, sure, I'm still in that room, but it does not feel like it at the time. So you lay down, and this guided meditation, this transcendental meditation, walked me through the steps. And the idea was that you laid down, you're calming yourself to the point where you can realize that your consciousness is a ball of energy, right? Your being, your soul is this ball of energy. And as you relax more, it walks you through the process of realizing there's a window in the room. And as you start to remove yourself, that ball, that blue light of energy or whatever color you give it, as you start to remove that from your vessel, from your body in this meditation, it tells you that there's a window in the room or there's a door. And through this door and through this pathway, your soul, your consciousness will float up through this window. And as it escapes from the room that you're in right now, you will walk into a long hallway, or at least this is how I visually perfectly remember this meditation, which was maybe a couple years ago at this point. But I vividly remember this because I was literally here. So it walked me through, I floated through this hallway. And on either side of me were these weird, like capsule looking things, almost like how you would picture the cryogenic chambers that people get frozen in when they go to space. It was kind of weird, but each one of these, capsules on each side of me were closed off, glassed in windows that I could look into. And each one of them was a different version of myself, a different variation of my being and a different reality. It was crazy. Trust me, I wouldn't believe this either if I was you, but it was really interesting. Think of it, even if it's hard to imagine this think of it like a dream. I was floating through this room, down this hallway that turned in this really interesting, perfectly circular angle around this corner that I never had to get to, because by the time that I noticed each of these vessels, I looked at each of them, and there was almost like as if there was this, monitor on each outside of it, which told me the personality traits of this individual, that told me their drive, their work ethic, their their attachment to love, and their ability to be compassionate and caring, and their grind, their ability to go after a goal, and their tenacity, and their, all of these different personality traits of all these different vessels down this hallway of all these different variations of who I am as a person in different realities. And so I walked along this hallway, and I looked at each one of these vessels, and I felt a magnet or a magnetism to a certain one of these, capsulated versions of myself. And so I walked up to this glass window, and I felt who this version of me was. And I realized that's the best version of me that I need for this time in my life: to be a compassionate, empathetic father, to be a good friend, to be a hard worker that's successful working towards my goals. And so I found that the color, when I realized that I was going to basically embody the traits of this variation of my personality. And so what I felt in that moment was the color of the orb that I removed from my body back in my office, laying on the floor on a yoga mat. The color of my consciousness, that energy ball that floated through this hallway, changed into a different color. It was wild. And as I did that, it called me back, and I walked, floated back through this hall as this new variation of who I was, and found myself back through that window that I came in from, back into the body that I was given in this reality, but with the renewed sense and qualities and traits of the version of myself that I found in that room. Crazy. It was wild, right? So this is like, I'm fairly positive it walked me through a majority of that experience. And it was so crazy. And right around that time, I had a turning point in my, what I did in my life. It caused me to rethink the day-to-day habitual actions that I was taking, the trajectory that I was on for my career, the things that I enjoyed doing. It made me question all of that. And it made me embody the traits of the compassionate father that I saw myself as, or felt myself as, in that different world, that hallway that I walked down. It was such a powerful experience. And to know that I could access that room at any given time that I needed it, right? Whether I needed to change my personality traits to be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a harder worker, to change my career, to have the balls to go after a dream like starting a podcast with the hopes of turning it into a successful career. It took me being a better version of myself than I knew I was in that moment before I left this room that I'm sitting in right now on the floor on a yoga mat. I knew it took more than that to be who I needed to be, to get where I wanted to go. And I found who I could be in that meditation. And I brought that back with me, and it's never left since. It's such a crazy experience. Okay, that all to say that I 100% believe that this is possible, right? Improved problem solving by calling on a higher self, which is the expanded consciousness of the subject. I could have found any number of variations of personality traits that I needed to embody to reach my goals, to be a better person, to be who I wanted to be in that room. And I found it, and I brought it back with me, and I embodied it. Okay. It was wild. It was crazy. You might not believe me, but it had a tremendous effect on my life. Okay. And by now, I don't bullshit. I don't talk. I don't just talk to talk. That was a crazy, unbelievable experience that I had. And if somebody told me and I never meditated before, I wouldn't believe you either.